UFC 308 is upon us, and today I will be bringing you guys my full card predictions and breakdown for every single fight on this card. The UFC always loves to stack the Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia cards, we know this, so I'm so excited to watch this fight. It is an earlier one, so make sure you guys are up for it. Don't forget about it. Let's get into it. Subscribe to the channel. First up, we have Ismail Dariv taking on Bruno Silva. Ismail, he's a UFC vet, right? He was 2-2 in the UFC. I'm not totally sure why they cut a guy that was 2-2. It's not that bad. He lost to Sean Brady before he was good. But, I mean, Sean Brady's always kind of been good, so I don't know what to say about that one. I mean, the only thing is, after the UFC, he's like 2-3. Like, not good at all after the UFC. He is only 28, right, Ismail is. And Bruno Silva, he's kind of getting up there. He's been in some wars, right? But Bruno Silva, he has a nasty chin, man. Took Alex Pereira to a decision. So, looking back, I mean, that looks very, very good. He lost to Chris Weidman because of eye pokes. He literally lost to eye pokes. So, it's kind of hard to count that one anything. And, he is kind of getting up there in age, but he has a lot of experience in the UFC, right? This guy, Ismail, he got cut before. He went over to Brave and kind of stunk it up at Brave. So he has not been doing very good on the recent, but they're bringing him back on short notice. And I don't know if I can pick him, man. He's looked so bad ever since he left the UFC. I just don't know if I can really pick him to win. Bruno Silva, he did look good against Chris Weidman when he wasn't getting poked in the eyes. And he took Alex Pereira to a decision, man. Don't forget that. So, Bruno Silva, he is genuinely a decent fighter. He's just right outside the rankings, and he's not too bad. So I think that he's going to beat Ismail Dariv pretty handily. I'm going to go with a 30-27 decision, or maybe like a late third round, maybe second round knockout, but I don't know. We'll have to see. But I am going to pick Bruno Silva to win. Yeah, like I said, by either 30-27 decision or a late Next knockout. Up, we have Abu Aslan taking on Rafael Caquera. Aslan is coming off of an absolutely dominant win over Anton Turkish in his UFC debut. Anton Turkish is definitely not the best of competition, but he has shown to have shots of being okay. All right, Anton Turkish, for his first fight in the UFC, is not too bad. It's seriously not that bad of a test, and he mopped the floor up with him completely. Completely smoked him and then knocked him out in the end of the third round. I mean, just an absolute dominant performance. Can't really get any better than that for Abu Aslan. And he's taken on Rafael Caquera, who, even though is making his UFC debut, he's still 11-0, and 10 of his 11 wins have been by finish. 8 of his 11 wins have been by knockout, and his last 5 fights, it's all been first-round knockouts. This guy, I mean, he's just been on a tear in the Brazilian MMA scene, but he hasn't really fought anybody good yet. And for that reason, I can't really pick him to beat a guy like Abu Aslan because he's already proved that he is UFC caliber, knocking out a guy on the Contender Series and then beating up and knocking out Anton Turkish on his UFC debut. So, I am going to take Abu Aslan with those piston power left hands to finish the job against Rafael Caquera. I mean, this guy Abu, if he wins this fight, he has some serious potential to be a good fighter in this division because, I mean, he has some power in those hands. Next up, we have Farid Basharat taking on Victor Hugo. And Farid Basharat, you're going to win in a super boring-ass fashion. And you're not going to get a step up in competition because the Basharat bros never do. It's going to be a super, super boring, pitter-pat, leg shot for leg shot fight. And it's just going to be such a boring and annoying fight. Victor Hugo does have pretty fast boxing, and I hope that he sleeps Farid Basharat out cold on the canvas. But unfortunately, he's not gonna. These Basharat bros, even though one of them just lost to a terrible, terrible Ayman Zahabi, I still think that Farid Basharat's gonna win. But he's not gonna get a bump up in competition because he's boring and the UFC doesn't want to see him succeed. So I'm taking Farid Basharat by a 30-27 decision. It's gonna be boring, it's gonna be lame, but I hope Victor Hugo pulls it off. Next up, we have Chris Beast Boy Barnett taking on Kennedy Nzechukwu. Kennedy Nzechukwu has just never had a very good chin, if you want me to say the least. He had an awful chin at light heavyweight, and now he's moving up to heavyweight, which is kind of scary. Johnny Walker's doing the same thing, except for Johnny Walker is just way better than Kennedy Nzechukwu. Kennedy Nzechukwu is like barely even light heavyweight skill. And if he's barely even light heavyweight skill, he might be able to beat up some of these heavyweights, but I don't really know, man. I don't really know. I think the grappling is the one thing that'll set him apart. If Kennedy Nzechukwu takes down Chris Barnett, that's where I think he'll beat him up very, very easily. But if it stays on the feet, I actually see Kennedy Nzechukwu getting knocked out by Chris Barnett. Chris Barnett is like 5'2" at heavyweight somehow, and he throws spinning kicks. He throws spinning wheel kicks, guys. So you better watch out for that. Okay, he flatlined Vigilante. I don't even know what his first name is, but his last name is Villante, something like that. Villante, whatever. He flatlined him with a spinning wheel kick. Okay, and I do think that Chris Barnett is gonna throw some of those spinning wheel kicks Saturday. Yeah, Saturday. I was gonna say tomorrow, but Saturday. But I just don't think that he's going to be able to beat Kennedy Nzechukwu unless he lands a big power blow, because there's a very clear difference in skill from light heavyweight to heavyweight, especially in the grappling. And I do think that Kennedy Nzechukwu is going to be smart enough to take down Chris Barnett, hold him there, beat him up with elbows in the clinch, beat him up with ground and pound shots. And I do think that eventually he's going to find the TKO. So give me Kennedy Nzechukwu by a second or third round TKO. Next up, we have Abu Magomedov taking on Bruno Ferreira. And Abu, man, he has some of the worst cardio I've ever seen. Okay, he has really some of the worst cardio I've ever seen, besides maybe Michel Pereira. Because Michel Pereira gassed out literally after like the third combination that he threw, he gassed out. Right? I mean, that was very, very bad. I mean, it was so bad. I mean, it was just so bad. He gassed out so fast. I don't know how Fluffy didn't finish him in the first, if you want me to be honest with you. He gassed out so insanely fast. But Abu Magomedov did the same thing to Sean Strickland and the same thing to Kyle Baralho. He won the first round, dominated the first round, and then just got completely smoked after that. Got knocked out or just got beat up for a decision, okay? I don't think that Abu Magomedov is going to be able to finish Bruno Ferreira in the first round, and because of that, he's not going to win. Unless Abu finishes the fight in the first round, he's going to lose, okay? He has some of the worst cardio known to man. Bruno Ferreira is going to take advantage of that. He's going to coast the first round, just focus on surviving, and then he's going to flatline Abu Magomedov with his insane power in the second or the third round. Bruno Ferreira has absolute crazy power in his hands, knocked out RoboCop, knocked out Dustin Stoltzfus, and now he's going to knock out Abu Magomedov. Give me Bruno Ferreira by a second round KO, a nasty, nasty KO. Next up, we have Said Nurmagomedov taking on Daniel Santos. And I don't really know why this fight's being made. Daniel Santos is bad. He is not good in any way. Said Nurmagomedov is better on the feet. He's better on the ground. He's better in the clinch. He's going to coast his way to a 30-27, maybe even a 36-26, maybe even a 30-25. He might even screw around and get a 30-24. He's going to dominate Daniel Santos. I'm calling it. There might even be a 10-8 in there. Okay? Said Nurmagomedov is getting one of those fights where there's honestly no reason for it to be made. He's obviously going to win. He's obviously going to dominate him. I don't even need to talk about this anymore. Said Nurmagomedov, 30-26, unanimous decision. And now we're on to the fight that I'm personally most excited for, and all casual or not casual hardcore fans are super excited for. Miktek Orolbai taking on Mateusz Rebecki. Mateusz Rebecki looked like a shell of his former self against Diego Ferreira. He was on an absolute tear going into that fight. He was a 7-1 favorite. Everyone thought he was going to win, but he gassed out harder than anybody else I've ever seen gas out in a while. Okay? He gassed out very, very bad. It was some Abu Magomedov, Michel Pereira type stuff. And now he's got to fight somebody like Miktek Orolbai, who has honestly pretty good striking and is phenomenal on the ground. Miktek Orolbai doesn't know what gassing out means. If Mateusz Rebecki goes in there and tries to swing for the fences in the first against Miktek Orolbai, he's going to gas out. Miktek Orolbai has a chin like no other. He's phenomenal on the ground, and he has some pretty good boxing too on the feet. So I honestly do think that Miktek Orolbai, he's an absolute oral merchant, and I think that he's going to take his aura to the next level and beat Mateusz Rebecki. Mateusz Rebecki was a huge prospect before he fought Diego Ferreira, but now I just think that he's being dealt the wrong cards. First, Diego Ferreira, he gasses out, he learns his lesson, but now he's got to fight somebody like Miktek Orolbai, and nobody is going to be able to stop Miktek Orolbai right now. Miktek Orolbai, even though he only has 1 fight or 2 fights in the UFC, he's still on an absolute tear. This guy is absolutely legit. He's going to be at Mateusz Rebecki. Mark my words, 30-27. Next up, we have Jeff Neal taking on RDA, and RDA is still a good fighter, guys. Do not get me wrong. RDA still is a great fighter. He dropped Mateusz Gamrot. I was going to say Mateusz Rebecki. He dropped Mateusz Gamrot, made it super, super competitive with him. And, you know, he honestly was beating up anybody on the feet that he fought. He was kind of winning the battles on the feet against Vicente Luque, and he definitely won the battles on the feet against Mateusz Gamrot. All right, he is still a good fighter. He's still legit. And Jeff Neal recently has been getting very, very boring. He's been doing some boring clinch work, right? He's just clinching up for dear life, not throwing his hands like he used to, and he just doesn't really seem like the same fighter. The same fighter that gave Vicente Luque brain damage, all right? This guy is just, he just kind of seems like a shell of his former self, man. That fight with Ian Gary, it was so awful. It was so awful. He was not letting his hands go. He was clinching up the whole time, and he wound up paying for it, and he lost, okay? And if he tries to do that against RDA, RDA could damn well get Jeff Neal. But a lot of RDA's work is done in the clinch. But the difference between RDA's work in the clinch and Jeff Neal's work in the clinch is that Jeff Neal holds you up against the clinch or against the fence. RDA does real damage in the clinch. Okay, against the fence, he is actually trying to hurt you. All right, but I think on the feet, Jeff Neal is just going to have a little bit too much power for the aging RDA. I do want RDA to win very bad because Jeff Neal just seems like he's fading. But RDA is just, he still has it, but I don't know, man. I don't know if he has anymore. He's 39, and I don't know if I could pick a 39-year-old to beat Jeff Neal. So give me Jeff Neal by a 29-28, razor close to. Next up, we have Shara Bullet Magomedov taking on Armen Petrosyan. And I know a lot of people are just going to be quick to take the Aura Merchant Shara Bullet. But Shara Bullet has kind of not really impressed me at all in his last couple fights. He's absolutely not the hype train that we all thought he was. And just because you punch random dudes in a mall for kissing their girlfriend does not mean that you're going to be a future UFC champion. Okay? Armen Petrosyan, even though he doesn't really seem the best on paper, this guy got wins against RoboCop, Chris Duncan, and AJ Dobson. I mean, most of those guys, like, they're not all that, but they're actually decent levels of competition, especially RoboCop. I think RoboCop destroys Shara Bullet. I think Chris Duncan, after seeing how I fought last fight, I think he has a good shot to beat Shara Bullet, and AJ Dobson, he would get destroyed by Shara Bullet. But still, those are some decent levels of competition that Armen Petrosyan is beating. I know that he lost his last fight in dominant fashion, but I honestly think that he's going to put up a decent fight against Shara Bullet. All right, I do think that Shara Bullet's going to do just enough each round to get the victory, but hey, do not sleep on Armen Petrosyan, man. This fight's going to be very close. But give me Shara Bullet by a 29-28 decision. Next up, we have Magomed Ankalaev taking on Alexander Rakic. All right, Magomed Ankalaev, the one problem that he's always had in his game is that he can't check low kicks. This guy cannot check low kicks to save his life. Alexander Rakic's biggest weapon and most powerful shot is his leg kick. Alexander Rakic has some of the nastiest leg kicks in this division outside of Alex Pereira. Honestly, maybe even better than Alex Pereira, since Alexander Rakic relies on his leg kicks so much more. And Alexander Rakic has pretty good takedown defense. So as long as he can get up off the feet from Magomed Ankalaev on the occasion, I do think that he's going to be able to outdamage Magomed Ankalaev. All right, Magomed Ankalaev is not all that on the feet, to say the least. He has been absolutely ashamed. I mean, he's just been shameful in some of these performances on the feet, man. And I just think that he's going to get destroyed by Alexander Rakic on the feet. He is going to get some good control time. He's going to rack up a few good takedowns. But honestly, I think Rakic is going to beat him. I know that he's a huge underdog, but give me Alexander Rakic, baby. Give me Alexander Rakic by a 2-1 at 29-28 split decision. Next up, we have Lerone Murphy taking on Dan Ige. This fight is going to be absolutely great on the feet. I'm still torn on who I want to pick. But after watching Lerone Murphy just kind of bully around Edson Barboza, who's not even that bad. I know that he's old, but he's not even that bad. He's a still decent fighter. But, I mean, after watching Leron Murphy just kind of dog walk him and bully him around the octagon for 5 straight rounds, I honestly think that he's going to be able to get Danny Ige. I think that he's going to be able to walk down and pressure Danny Ige on the feet. He is a merchant for being, undefeated, but still, man, that performance against Edson Barbosa was very, very impressive, and Danny Ige would definitely not be able to do the same. So I do think that I'm going to take Leron Murphy to beat Danny Ige, especially after seeing Danny Ige. I know it was on super short notice, but like hours notice. But I mean, he just got dog walked by Diego Lopez. Outside of one big exchange in the last round, he got dog walked by Diego Lopez. All right? If you're getting dog walked that bad by Diego Lopez, I think Leron Murphy can do not that good, but I do think that Diego Murphy. I think that Leron Murphy can, keep up or match that or match you, Danny Ige. So I am going to take Leron Murphy by a split decision. Maybe Danny Ige could find a big blow, which he does do that a lot. He could be able to just find a big shot on Leron Murphy, but I'm not just going to bank on that. So give me Leron Murphy by a split decision at 29-20. In the co-main event, we have hopefully Khamzat Chimaev taking on Robert Whittaker. If Khamzat Chimaev can make it into that octagon on Saturday night, I am going to pick Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat Chimaev is such a dominant force in the first round. The way that he just manhandled Usman in the first, I mean, he would completely destroy Bobby Knuckles doing something like that. I know that it was short notice Usman, and I know that Usman kind of did come back and bring it back to a draw, at the very least a draw, against Khamzat Chimaev. But man, dude, Khamzat just completely dog-walked and demolished Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman, man, that guy is impossible to take down, and he's impossible to keep down. And Khamzat just did it, no problem. Bobby Knuckles, man, he is toast in the first round. I mean, for sure a 10-8 in the first. He might even sub Bobby Knuckles in the first. But after the first, Khamzat Chimaev has no cardio. Khamzat did not look that gassed in the second against Usman, but that third round, he looked rough. And there's 5 rounds in this fight. So if Khamzat doesn't finish him in the first, I do think that Bobby Knuckles might be able to get him. But I'm not going to bank on that because Khamzat's so dominant in the first. I think Khamzat's just going to sub him in the first round, man. I do think that if it goes past the first, Robert Whittaker's going to get him, but I don't think that's going to happen. So give me Khamzat Chimaev by a first round. Finally, in the main event, we have Max Holloway taking on Ilia Topuria for the featherweight title. I've already made a whole video on why I think Max Holloway is going to beat Ilia Topuria, but in a little shorter video, I'm going to make one right now. All right, and long story short, yes, I do think that Max Holloway is going to regain his featherweight belt against Ilia Topuria. But after watching that face-to-face in a face-to-face interview, Ilia Topuria was kind of getting in Max Holloway's head, man. Completely getting in Max Holloway's head. But Max Holloway has such a crazy reach advantage over Ilia Topuria. I don't think that Ilia Topuria is going to be able to get inside the pocket and throw those big gnarly shots at Max Holloway. Volk was piecing up Ilia Topuria before he got KO'd, and Max Holloway, the only reason why I'm picking Max Holloway is because he can't get KO'd. All right, Ilia Topuria needs a KO to beat somebody like Max Holloway, and I don't think he's going to find a KO over somebody like Max Holloway. This fight is going to be absolutely great, and I do think that it's going to go back and forth, and I do think that Ilia Topuria is going to rock Max Holloway a couple times. But as long as he doesn't drop or KO Max Holloway should be able to get this decision. Okay, so I'm going to take Max Holloway by a razor close 48-47 decision. I'm so hyped for this fight. Who's with me?